Chuck, so good
Hey,
to see you
good to see you.
because you're doing well.
Absolutely. Night and day, I mean, compared to last time.
That's amazing. Remind me, how long have you, has this been ordeal been?
The beginning from when I was floxed,
Yep,
uh,
exactly.
yeah, I was floxed in September of 2020. September 2020, total of 27 pills, 500 milligrams, two pills a day, two pills every 12 hours apart. Then the reaction kicked in close to the last pill. I didn't even finish the last pill, so the reaction kicked in and everything went downhill from there. Yeah, I thought I wouldn't bounce back at the time. That particular time, I thought I was toast, you know? Um,
Yeah. And I forgot, what were the symptoms like?
Whew, I mean, too many, too many. I think the darkest ones was the numbing that went through the numbing that went through all the body, but then again, the mental health as well. I had numbing. Uh, I can't even describe in places. I mean, lips, mouth, face, legs, arms. It was horrible.
Could you walk or did it feel like you were weak or just, how did that feel, Nami?
I hate using this description, but it's the best way I could describe it, you know, because it's such a horrible image to think of. But I always refer to it as I was walking like Muhammad Ali in his the boxer Muhammad Ali in his end stages when he was dying from Parkinson. So I was walking like that when the reaction happened. Barely could walk. So
Wow. That's a good way to say it because as you know, it happened to me too. And my friends just didn't understand. They're like, you look like you can walk just fine. And I'm like, yeah, but it feels like I ran a marathon to walk down the street. So how long since it first, since you first got the symptoms, did you figure out you were floxed? Like what was the process of that like?
3 to 4 months went by before I knew anything, and I would have never dreamed in a million years that it was an antibiotic that did it. So that was completely ruled out of the picture. I thought I had everything. I just thought life changed and flipped. I thought I got sick in some sort of way, and of course, immediately my mind went to cancer. And the only reason it went to cancer is because of how much weight I was losing. I was vomiting blood, pooping blood, not eating. My When I say not eating, I'm not even exaggerating. I was going 4 or 5 days not eating. I had to go to the hospital multiple times in a year just for hydration because I wouldn't eat or drink due to whatever was going on in my body. So I thought automatically, okay, I probably have cancer. Constant trips to
Wow,
the hospital, your blood work, scans. Everybody kept telling me I was fine, and not only that, the toll it took on how I looked at the time. I mean, I looked like a dying patient from something. I kid you not. I thought I had everything under the sun, you know. And what ended up making me find out was one night I was on my couch laying down because I could barely even sit up at the time because my coordination or whatever was going on up here was so bad. My wife came over to the couch. She was talking to me and she said, I'm still trying to figure out what went wrong. We were trying to figure out what went wrong. And then she mentioned the only thing you did different that week was you took an antibiotic. And immediately I said, nah, that's got nothing to do with it. But she went back into the kitchen. Uh, I stood on the couch and it dwelled in my head for about 10, 15 minutes. And I started Googling the antibiotic. I said, what the heck? I got nothing to lose. Um, and I was floored when everything came up about it. I made my conclusion right there. This is what happened to me. I was poisoned by this antibiotic. I
you
then
were,
I'm reading
yeah.
people took one pill, two pills, and I'm like, wow, I took 27 of these pills. No wonder why I'm feeling the way I'm
Yeah.
feeling.
Let's say that again. You were poisoned by an antibiotic called the fluoroquinolones, which are just, they have X number of black box warnings. The FDA has told doctors not to prescribe them unless it's absolutely necessary and other antibiotics won't work, but they
Yeah,
are still prescribing them and they are causing this kind of hell for people. What did doctors think was going on?
My primary, when I went back to him before I even mentioned the antibiotic, I remember going back to him when I started having symptoms from the antibiotic, and he just told me it was still because I want to put that out there. I got prescribed the antibiotic for a sinus infection. So when I went back for the follow up for the sinus infection, he ended up telling me when the symptoms started up, I started having stomach issues, breathing issues. And at that time, if you had breathing issues in 2020, it was automatically you had COVID. Could rule that out through testing. His assumption was it's the infection still in your body. It hasn't came out yet. So don't worry, we'll knock it out. And he re-prescribed me the same antibiotics again after the first course.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Oh, you so
So,
first of all, they are not. I mean, the FDA said do not give these for sinus infections.
yep.
And then he did it twice after you were already having symptoms.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Did you take it the second time?
I did, and that's what
You
equaled
did.
out to 27, came to 27 pills because I still to this day have one pill left that's sitting in my bathroom cabinet. I don't know why I still have it, but I remember not taking the last pill. The damage was already done at that time, but I looked at my wife one night and it was my last pill, time to take it that night. And I told her, I'm not taking it. I said, I feel horrible. But I thought it was dehydration. I still wasn't blaming the antibiotic. I said, if this makes any sense, I said the antibiotics just dehydrating the hell out of me. And I'm not even going to take the last one because I said I feel horrible. Um, but that didn't matter. What the damage was already done at that point.
It's weird because I have a bottle up there of 6 pills left. Not sure why I didn't get rid of them, but I think I was prescribed 10 and I only got through 4. And yet, here I am many more later, still struggling. But why we kept the pills, I don't know, but I think that's interesting that we both did that. Um, how did you and I meet? I forget,
Um,
like how early into your process was it?
I hope I'm correct on this, but I believe it was in my first year of floxing. How many months in? You got to forgive me. I'm bad with numbers. Like since this happened to me.
Okay. I just
Um,
trying to get a sense of like, was it early? It was toward the
um,
beginning, I think.
at least I want to say the sixth month. Because I was bad. I mean, I was really bad at that time. So yeah, we
Okay.
met around the 6 month period, I believe.
And how did you, was it through a video? How did you find me? I forget.
Yeah, it
It
was through a
must have
video.
been.
I watched your
Yeah.
video, because I was looking up stuff on fluoroquinolones at that time, and your video stood out to me tremendously because when I heard your story, you were one of the few that I heard that couldn't even type an email, and I heard you barely could walk. So I said, "Wow!" And when I heard you took 4 pills only, I'm not gonna lie, your video helped in a sense, but it scared the heck out of me too because I said she only took 4 pills and she couldn't even type an email. So I said I took 27. So automatically I said I'm doomed. There's it's over.
Oh, I'm
You
sorry.
know,
That was not my intention at all. I didn't want to scare people, but we did start talking and I did assure you that you would get better. So,
yeah.
I just knew it. I knew it in my heart that you would get better. I also knew that was probably going to take a while because my math's not so great, but it sounds like it's 4 years in September.
Uh,
And I
yeah,
know
it'll be
those,
4 years.
first couple of years were brutal, but I knew you were going to get better and I knew we were going to celebrate one day. And I got the text from you this week that you've phenomenal. And
Yeah.
I just made me so happy to hear that.
The first
And
year was hell on earth. The second year was wow. After the second year, I said to myself, I'm not gonna get better from this. I just gotta accept what it is. But as time went on, I got better. I didn't believe you. I'm gonna be honest. In the beginning, you told me it'll get better. I said, I no, I don't think so. I didn't tell you that, but to myself, I thought there's no way I'm gonna be better from this. The symptoms were too bad to have any hope at that time. But you were right. I got better. I'm not
Let
100%.
But I mean, the text you sent me this week was just that you're like phenomenal. Like you're working out, you're living your life, right? In a way that you just didn't think you would a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, that living my life very different
Mm,
from 3 years ago for sure.
for sure.
Definitely.
So let's spread some hope, especially now that I heard that like I scared you from the first video, which was like, it's walking a fine line because you want to scare people enough that they don't take the antibiotic in the first place, right? But
Yeah,
you don't want to, people not to have hope because first of all, I think there is hope, and I think you're walking proof of that. And I have talked to people from all over the world, and almost everybody I talk to makes a full recovery. In fact, you know, talk about me a little later, I have been slower than most, but I was older. I was 47 when it happened. And I had a host of autoimmune diseases beforehand. So my recovery has been slower than most. But when I've seen it happen to young, healthy people, um, almost everybody makes a full recovery, and it can take time. Sometimes it's in 6 months, sometimes it's in a year, sometimes it's in a couple years. But the like I said, everybody who was young and healthy to begin with returned that way.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about what you did and why you think you got better. Was it just time?
Honestly, I tried a lot of supplements, but I think it was time. I think ultimately it was time. Uh, Supplements, whew, there are a lot to name, and I think the highlighted ones that I can say did they help, at least I believe, were B vitamins, magnesium, vitamin D. And when I put this out there, I don't put this out there with, oh, go run and buy these vitamins. I'm not saying that. I I took them, but I still was in a bad time when I was taking them. There came a point, and I also don't recommend this neither, but to each their own. There came a point where I just stopped every single vitamin I was taking because I lost hope. I said, it is what it is. It's gonna be what's gonna be. But I started getting better. I started getting better. It was a trial and error. I had to go back on some vitamins for certain things. For my particular case, I feel vitamin D helps me huge. Why? I don't know. But when I was flocks, my neurologist did blood work on me, and my vitamin D came out literally to a 9 on the blood panel. And they asked for you to at least have a 30 and all the way up to like 100. From 30 to 100 is a normal range. Mine was at a 9. So obviously, whatever
Oh,
happened affected some vitamin levels. And but ultimately, I think it was time because as time went on, I just kept getting better. I tried to give myself as much rest as I could. That was hard. And I think that goes case by case. It was harder for me because I had to work. I have at the time, she was 2 years old when I got Flocks, my daughter. She's now 5. So
yeah.
that was, you're still trying to be a father through that and
Yep.
heal. And that's hard to explain to
Yep.
a toddler.
I I remember that being heartbreaking talking to you, like being like you wanted to be able to play more with your daughter and
Yeah.
just physically exhausting. What do you say to people who have just had this happen to them now? What is your message to them?
I know where you're at. Jane knows where you're at. You're in a dark place. I get it, and I know the window you're looking at. The window you're looking at is there's no hope. What happened to me? Hopefully, you at least know what happened to you. It took me 4 months to realize what happened to me, but and I know because I've been there. I've been told that it's gonna get better. I didn't believe it. So if you're watching this, you're probably not believing it. Maybe you are, but you will get better. I've personally heard from a guy who was floxed, and I hope nobody's healing takes this long, but he told me after 9 years, he made a full
Yep.
recovery. And I'm like, wow,
Wow.
he said a full
And
recovery, 100%. He's back to labor work, hitting the gym,
wow.
running with his dogs. So I
That
hope
gives
nobody
me,
takes 9 years.
yeah, that gives me hope because I'm looking at 7 and I'm about 6 months away is what I think from making a full recovery. But recovery, I did see like an email from someone recently asking if recovery is possible. And I will say not only is it possible, it's more likely than not recovering, right? Just like I said, everybody recovers to some degree,
Yeah,
or almost like 99% of people recover to some degree. And then, 90+%, I'm, anecdotally, just from talking to people, make close to a
yeah,
full recovery. I want to end on that note before we pick up though on part two. And part two, I want to talk a little bit more about, some things that we both tried that may or may not work, our opinions on
yeah.
like the floxing community and all of that. But for this, I am just so like personally grateful. I wish I was there. I wish I could give you a hug. We've never met in person, but the bonding just by text of between the two of us when, two people that didn't know each other going through the same thing, supporting each other. Um, even like when I was at my sickest, it made me feel useful as a human being, knowing that I was encouraging you and your progress just gave me hope, right? Like, I mean, I was happy for you and it was also hopeful for myself. And so this relationship between like people who, never met has just been
Yeah.
so helpful. And I like when I got your text this week about how great you were doing. And frankly, between you and me, I was having a pretty crappy week last week. And I saw that and that just turned everything around. So thank
I
you.
even told my therapist, I see a therapist now. I even told her the best person I met through all of this was you. I mean, and I mean that because
Oh, oh
you
my gosh.
you came with positivity. I talked to a lot of people, and there's two people I narrow it down. Unfortunately, one of them I don't talk to no more. He was a great guy. I'm not gonna get involved in all of that. And some people I understand they want to move on from this and never talk about it again. And this is where I praise you. I'm telling you, Jane, because you're one of those people that healed from it. Or healing still from it,
Yeah.
and you didn't walk away and say, well, screw everybody else. You still encourage people that you speak to, and what that did for me is huge because in my darkest time, if I didn't have someone to talk to like that, you're the reason to see a therapist. I would have never went to a therapist in my life. I would have never, which we'll talk about later on, other
Yeah.
things that help. I would have never trusted any pharmaceuticals again, any doctor again. But speaking to you brought my head from all over the place to level, and I can't be thankful enough. Serious.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't expecting to cry. I think, you know, there was a period toward the beginning where I was in such a dark place that, and I really haven't talked about this to too many people, but I was like, I don't want to live anymore like this. And I
Yeah.
remember being like, one doctor was trying to ask if I was suicidal. And I remember being like, I'm not suicidal yet because I could get better. And like, I don't, why kill myself if I could actually get better? But I
Yeah.
remember thinking, like, if I don't get better, I don't think I can live like this.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that helped me though was when I was at my absolute sickest was asking myself, like, am I still at use on this planet? Like, because, for years, my career is I'm a human rights attorney and, my whole sense of being is helping people. And I was in a place where I could not help myself. How could I help anybody else, right? I couldn't type an email. I couldn't barely send a text, let alone like, I
That is so
walked the halls of
courageous.
Albany trying to raise money for trafficking victims. I couldn't do any of that. And I remember thinking, what use I am. And then though I would get off the phone with you or some other people, and I'd be like, you know what? I made that person feel a little better. So at least I have some use, even in this shape. I have some use on this planet. So let's let's pause just a second so I can pull myself
Sure.
together. And then we'll come right back for part two.
Uh,
Yeah. Okay, I'm back. I wanted to pull myself together, for part two of this video on floxing. Again, the purpose of this video is hope, so wasn't expecting tears just because I am just so profoundly happy at how well that you are doing, Chuck, and we want to send the word out there to people. A don't take this antibiotics to begin with, right? Let's do some education there. The fluoroquinolones, there's
Please
what,
don't.
Cipro,
Uh,
Levaquin, there's a whole line of them. They
yeah.
end with Quin. Do not take them. You don't have to just listen to random people on the internet. The FDA is saying not to take them unless you absolutely need to. But for reasons I do not understand, your average doctor doesn't know. I would say about 50-50.
Yeah.
50% of the doctors now do know, but 50% of the doctors are like, no idea what you're talking about.
There's
Um,
even top articles coming out from top universities, John Hopkins University, Harvard, just to name a few. WebMD is even mentioning it more. This can be researched by anybody that is mentioning the dangers of these antibiotics now. So it's gaining, that light, that we need out there.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Although, again, still a lot of people do not know. And one, I think a huge myth is just because you've taken it before and haven't had a problem doesn't mean that you won't the next time. And that kind of kills me because I've talked to a lot of people and they've said things like, I've taken it in the past and it was fine. And I'm like, you know what? Like, just because it was fine before doesn't mean that it's going to be fine now. And they don't believe me, but that's true. Like, there's just every time you do it, it's like Russian roulette. So don't do it if you can avoid it, right? Just don't do it. Um, and just since it's part two of the video, just in case someone's just jumping in just at the second part, I don't even know if I was so excited to see you, Chuck. I don't even know if I introduced you in the first part. But the two of us, I am Jane. This is Chuck. We have both been victims, yes, hi everybody, of these horrible antibiotics called the fluoroquinolones, and we're sharing our what is called floxing story. And we've talked before early on, but I still wanted to talk again on a video because you've made almost a complete recovery. And I have remember hours of texting you and you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to get better. And I just knew that you were. I knew that you were, and you did. And this is like the best I told you so ever. So that's pretty awesome. Uh, this
It
part
would
of the
be
video,
more
though,
like Jane.
oh, go ahead.
It
Go
would
ahead.
be more
Say
like
that.
Jane, I'm feeling this. Jane, I'm feeling that. Jane, what's going
Yes.
on? Yeah. Am I
Yes.
gonna get better? Like,
And yes. And and by like, again, I'm not a doctor. Neither of us are doctors, but I had talked to so many people, and so many people had gotten better. Like, and I had read a lot. Like, as I said, a majority of people do fully recover. Unfortunately, it takes time. I want to get a little bit on a soapbox here on the floxing community and how I
yeah,
thought they helped, but also how I thought they hurt. And I think you and I feel similar about this. But it's fine if you disagree. Um, I, one of the things I immediately I found the antibiotic thing right away. Like I immediately turned to Google, and the first thing I found was like, you know, this can happen. This like they said something like, I found something that said some people are harmed for a couple of days, some people are harmed for a couple of months, some people are harmed for a couple of years, and some people are harmed permanently. And don't bother going to a doctor. They're not going to believe you and they're not going to be able to help you. And I saw that and I started hyperventilating. Um, and
how
I
soon?
did not say that again.
I'm sorry. How soon did you notice it?
I mean, it was so on the literally the third day of taking the antibiotic.
Wow.
I was I walked to and from work and I was walking to work and all of a sudden my legs felt really heavy, like I was walking in cement. And I didn't figure out it was the antibiotic, so I took it the next day. And the next day I just started Googling. Oh, I think maybe I told my brother is a doctor and he ruptured his Achilles from taking Levaquin.
Wow.
What's really funny, and that had been like a decade prior, and he'd kill me for telling this story, but that's okay. His wife was, taking Levaquin frequently for like sinus infections or something like that, and would always notice that her Achilles would bother her when she was taking the Levaquin. And my brother, and this was like, over a decade ago. So it wasn't really his fault for maybe not knowing. Well, maybe even closer to 2 decades ago. Um, and he was like, "That's ridiculous. An antibiotic cannot hurt your, Achilles." And then, sure enough, 6 months later or whatever, my brother's playing tennis on Levaquin and ruptures, or I don't know, hurts his Achilles. I don't know if he ruptures it.
Wow.
All of a sudden he Googles it and he's like, "Oh my God, my wife was right." And then I have a condition, myasthenia gravis, that you're not supposed to take the fluoroquinolones. And he did tell me at that time, he said, "Watch out for this antibiotic." But it was 10 years prior. I forgot about it. Um, knew I had to be careful with my myasthenia gravis, but never in a million years thought an autoimmune disease. I mean, it's that an antibiotic would do that. Um, so I think I started Googling myasthenia gravis and that medication, and all of a sudden I saw that, and then I saw the Floxy sites, and
Wow.
I saw that quote, not go to a doctor. Um, I did go to my neurologist on the myasthenia side right away, but I didn't pursue, and they were like, "No, this is not myasthenia," and I didn't pursue other doctors. I regret that. I really think I should have gone to the hospital that moment, right? And demanded some tests. And so I do kind of blame the floxing community for that. I don't, I understand why they say not to go to regular doctors because,
Yeah.
the medical system is messed up. They don't spend enough time with you. They do tend to blow you off, and it is very frustrating. I still think, though, that you got to try. I think the answers are more likely to come from that way than the functional medicines and the stem cells. And I don't, first of all, I don't think, and you and I have discussed this a lot, um, I don't think we're all suffering from the same thing, right? I don't think
Mhm.
floxing is one thing, right? I don't think it's just a side effect of this antibiotic.
I agree.
My belief is that a lot of us have underlying conditions or underlying things in our bodies, and the medication can unmask that.
Yeah.
And if that, some people it is like, I think the Achilles and stuff is just a side effect. So some of us just are dealing with side effects, but some of us now have underlying illnesses. And if you don't figure out what that underlying illness is, you are never going to get better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Your thought, I talked a long time. I'm sorry, but
No,
that's
no,
something
no.
I believe in my heart and my soapbox. So I
I
don't know. What
do.
are your thoughts about that?
Basically on the side effects, right?
Yeah, like, do you think people should not go to the doctor? Do you think that we all are just floxed versus like where do you stand on all of that?
In the beginning, I tell you, when I found out, at least, I said, no, I'll never trust another doctor. I'll never go to another doctor. However, you're part of that. What helped me to speak to doctors again, because you always told me, you gotta go with what science shows. These people could run tests. And God, I wish I would have met you even earlier in my floxing, because I wasted a lot of money on people that ran zero tests on me, not even blood tests, nothing. Just told
Yeah,
me, listen to
me
my
too.
story, prescribed me tons of supplements. And please, if anybody got helped in that way, I'm happy for them. I'm not against that, but for me, I lost a lot of time, and didn't help. There were supplements outside of the normal things I bought, and going through like actual functional doctors, stuff like that, and specialists in toxicity and things like that. Again, which I'm not against, but uh, that made me worse even at certain points. And in fact, I'll tell a quick story. I had one functional doctor I was seeing that prescribed me some supplements. And I remember receiving the supplements. I was feeling horrible already. And I was forcing myself that day to go to the beach with my daughter. And I was going through my normal things that day, the symptoms that were going on. But I took the supplements in hope of, whatever, any good that would come out of it. I remember going to the beach that day and wow, I had to leave, I literally had to leave the beach. My daughter was upset
Remember
because
this.
it caused a terrible reaction in my body. From my legs got worse. Um, so I would be careful if you're seeing success. Hey, who can tell you anything else? But
Yeah.
back to the doctors, though, what got me to trust was you were telling me how you started going back to doctors, and you told me how you had certain things like steroid injection that you avoided for so long in your neck. Um, just you told me how you were seeing other types of doctors for things, and so I said, you know what, I'm running out of money, you know what I mean? So I don't have a choice here. I got to go try to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And also at the time, I was on a medication because I've been on a medication for years through hormone treatment. So I said to myself, I said, well, you're on a medication and even been on a medication while you were floxed. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
hypocritical that you're saying never to
Yes.
take a medication.
Yes.
Um, so I want to put this out there, a medication that helped me substantially after being floxed. I had unbelievable anxiety going. I couldn't go nowhere without sweating like terribly. I would sweat everywhere I went. People would be coming to talk to me wherever I went. And I had this thing in my head where I just wanted the conversation to be over and be out of there already. So I was suffering from panic attacks, anxiety, which I've never had
Yeah.
until I got
The worst.
flux. And I remember saying to myself, I would never take nothing for anxiety. I would never take nothing for depression, anything like that. And even through being flux, I remember it was actually my cardiologist who gave me a medication because he noticed my heart rate was just out of control. Uh, I ended up taking a medication. It's called metoprolol, which helps with social anxiety, helps with heart rate, can help with a host of different things. But I'll tell you right now, before I took this medication, I could not go by cemeteries because I would shed tears all day long. I just had these thoughts in my head of my daughter's going to
Wow.
be with her father, my daughter's going to be without her. I'm going to die. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
dead the
Perfect.
next
Yeah.
year. Um, and I remember sitting with the first pill before I ever took it because I was terrified to take it because I did not take another medication after being floxed. And I sat on the couch and I remember telling my wife, I'm gonna take this, and if anything happens to me, I love you, etc. I
Wow.
swallowed the pill. Within 45 minutes, I was paranoid waiting because I'm like, I hope nothing happens. I hope nothing happens. 45 minutes, it's like a weight came off my shoulders. I sat and immediately I said, "My God, I should have took this a long time ago." Because when he prescribed it to me, I kept it on the shelf for a couple of months without taking it due to my fear of everything. A lot of what I heard too, don't take this, don't take that, from just random people that I spoke to. Pharmaceuticals are poison, etc.
Yep.
And I listened and I suffered, for so long. Uh,
And then the medication worked, right? That medication worked.
I mean, a life changer ain't even the words. I
Worked.
mean, I'm still on that
You know,
medication. I tapered off a little, but I'm still on it. But it helps
we
tremendously.
we live in this very all or none world, right? Where people are either for medication or for something or against something. And I always believe like the answer is somewhere in between. Like there are bad medications out there, right? There are the fluoroquinolones out there, but there are medications that have saved lives. My brother's a cancer survivor. He would not be alive today, nor would I without certain medication. So not all medication is evil because, the fluoroquinolones are known. They've got black box warnings. I
Hmm.
have changed in the past. I took, medications a lot more like freely. Now I do my research. Now I don't take things lightly. If I don't need something, I will avoid it. But if you need something, you need something. And they're not all bad. A lot of medications have saved lives. So this idea, like in my opinion, the floxing community, that's, what people who've taken these antibiotics often call themselves. They did one good thing. They spread a lot of hope. I saw a lot of recovery stories. A shout out for the site called Floxy Hope with a lot of recovery stories. But they also did some damage. I think, me not going to a doctor, right away. I did go to the neurologist as soon as I could get in the office, but not going to that hospital right in that very first moment, I think was the big drawback to me. Um, Not taking steroids. Like so if there's research that shows that taking a steroid at the same time as a fluoroquinolone is a very bad combination and can lead to the tendon issues and the tendon rupture. And I think research even shows that maybe even as long as 6 months after you've taken the fluoroquinolone to take the steroid could be dicey. Nothing. There is no research whatsoever that says, you need to avoid a steroid 3 years later. Granted,
Yes.
steroids aren't great. Certainly systemic steroids aren't great. And again, avoid what you can. But I was in such pain and the steroid, when I finally took it, offered some relief. And I wish I had, taken that earlier.
Hmm.
I did get on an anti-anxiety medication. And the Floxy community very much against that. I would not have gotten through the first year. Also I was, 47, never had a panic attack in my life, but the Levaquin induced these panic attacks, I think, is a result from not being able to walk or use my arms and not knowing why. But I would not have gotten through that year without that medication. So this idea that all medication is bad and that all doctors are bad, um,
Hmm.
I found not helpful.
I
I
would
don't
have never,
know.
I'm being honest, I would have never taken the medication that I'm on had I not got the words from you. I'm telling you, I was thinking about you a lot that day while I was holding that pill in my hand. And I remember you saying anti-anxiety medications helped me significantly. And I kept saying to myself, I hope it helps me. You know what I mean? Like I was scared and like, I
Yeah.
hope it helps me. Um, but I tell you, when I
And
took it, it's like, why didn't you do this a long time ago? You suffered like so long.
yeah.
So there's
And
there's hope.
yeah, and it is like, there is some truth. I do find, the medical system is very broken. I'm writing about that now. And so I understand the frustration with doctors, but they're the ones who can run the tests and they're the ones who can prescribe the
Exactly.
medication. So you got to work with them. I think what I would do now, if I were to go backwards 7 years, I would still, as a patient, take the lead and tell the doctors. I would ask the doctors what to do, but if they're going to blow me off, then I'm going to tell them, no, don't blow me off. I want you to run A, B, C, D, E tests. So some of the
Yeah.
tests, so in case people are in this now, first thing I would do, and I did have a good doctor who did this for me, and didn't come up with much, but all vitamin levels, absolutely iron. Like there's a whole ferritin
Yeah.
iron panel because these antibiotics are known to like deplete that. Vitamin D, Vitamin D, I'm a big believer in, floxed or not. There is,
Yeah.
my brother and I both have had cancer, and there's a lot of research showing that people with vitamin D deficiency are more likely to get cancer, and that Americans as a
Wow,
whole are
really.
very vitamin D deficient. So I mean, I'm a big believer in vitamin D supplementation regardless. Uh, but all like getting all of your B vitamins run, your D vitamins, magnesium. At the time, I think when I was reading the flock stuff, they said there wasn't a good magnesium blood test. I don't think that's true anymore. Magnesium also doesn't really hurt.
Yeah.
So there's certainly nothing wrong with supplementing those vitamins.
Hmm.
Also, though, there's some rarer autoimmune diseases out there that I do think this antibiotic can either cause or unmask. And
Hmm.
actually, they're called rare. I don't even think they're that rare. I think they're rare because doctors don't look for them. So they're not testing for them, and doctors are only used to seeing them in their most extreme form. You and I have discussed two of them. One is myasthenia gravis, which I knew I had prior to the antibiotic. Another something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, both autoimmune diseases that weaken your your muscles. In Guillain-Barré, often you're starting with your legs, moving to your arms. Doctors often do not diagnose this unless you like literally are paralyzed or on a ventilator. But
Absolutely.
right, so they don't believe you can have it. But the reality is, like everything, it's a spectrum, right? And you can have it and still be able to walk and just feel like, that heavy leg symptom, tingling in the legs. Like I also felt widespread tingling and it didn't feel
Yeah.
like weakness, but it felt like I was like stuck in mud. It felt like it was hard to like move my legs. I wish I had like gone to the hospital and said, give me like test my antibodies, give me a lumbar puncture for Guillain-Barré. I don't know if they would have done it because they would have been like, no, you can walk. But I would have insisted because I do think that a certain percentage of these cases are Guillain-Barré. There are some case reports that show that these antibiotics have absolutely induced Guillain-Barré, like, and it's been
Yeah.
proven with the lumbar puncture. And my belief is if it's going to happen once or twice in a case study, if it can happen once, it can happen as, a zillion times as well. They're just not looking for it. So,
I agree.
I make the doctor at least run the blood test right away. Myasthenia is another one that if you're not on a ventilator, you cannot, you can walk. They're not going to diagnose you with it, but you can have it. You just neck weakness, eye weakness, leg weakness. It's a simple blood test, right? Um, Unfortunately, you got to get to a neurologist, right? So it is a lot of like bouncing around from doctor to doctor. So I would have those blood tests, John, an entire autoimmune panel because it can set off a zillion and one autoimmune diseases. So you got to get to a good rheumatologist. You got to get to a good primary care physician who's going to do all of your vitamins. You're going to get a good neurologist. Um, what else? Psychiatric symptoms, go to a psychiatrist, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. Like I think we get stuck on this is floxing, this is floxing. Well, the antibiotic might have caused it, but if your symptoms now, like there's not a medical term for floxing, your symptoms now, panic attacks is panic attacks. It doesn't matter how it caused, right?
Yep.
Insomnia is insomnia. Like hallucinations are hallucinations. Myasthenia is like, so you go to the psychiatrist and you see, and you can see if there are ways to avoid medication, right? Through therapy and cognitive behavior therapy. But if you can't, you consider medication. Um,
Yeah.
and if it's muscular, like it causes tendinosis, it causes tendon ruptures. So get those MRIs, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I found out just recently that I'm walking around on a torn meniscus and a hip labral tear. One of the things when I first got sick, I absolutely noticed the weirdest part of my body was my left knee. I didn't bother to check it out because my whole body was tickling and twitching and whatever. So I wasn't gonna like, I don't know, MRI one part of the body over another, but I just did
Yeah.
it 5 years ago. And sure enough, I got a huge tear in that left meniscus, right? Probably should have MRI'd that 7 years ago.
Hmm.
So as frustrating as it is, and as dismissive as doctors may be, keep going to them and insist that they run tests. That's what I
Yes.
say. I'm
Absolutely.
sorry, that was a very long thing, but I
No,
just
no,
feel
no,
so
absolutely.
strongly, and I feel like we got to counter some of what's out there.
I agree. A neurologist is imperative. I mean, of course, other doctors, but a neurologist is imperative. I notice with these symptoms because I, every Floxy is different, but one thing I noticed with a lot of them are numbing is like it's almost across the board. Numbing is
Yeah.
almost across the board. It's one of the black box warnings are neuropathies, that it can
Yeah.
cause, which
Yeah.
I ended up finally getting diagnosed this year with the small fiber neuropathy through a test called the TM flow test. Um, and they say it's idiopathic. They've run, I mean, Jane, I can't do no more tests. In 3 years, I've done them, like you name it, autoimmune panels from rheumatologists, neurologists. I've even been to what do they call ENTs? Because when I had the facial symptoms, I thought maybe I thought the weirdest thing, maybe I got a tumor behind my face somewhere, that's causing the muscles to act up, or uh, man, you name it, I've been there. I've probably been to every doctor, cardiologist, probably everything but a endocrinologist. You know.
I'm going to one of them now too. Actually, she's really helping. But so that's, that could be, it depends what your symptoms are, right? Some people have GI symptoms, so you go to a GI doctor. Um,
Yeah.
you know, doesn't mean now like that lifestyle modification isn't helpful too. Everybody, oh my God, that was so confusing. Don't eat meat, eat vegan, don't eat this, eat that. Everyone said something different. I mean, there's nothing wrong with eating healthier and experimenting with eating healthier. Well, I have celiac disease, so I've always eliminated gluten, but I definitely know gluten bothers some people, even if they don't have celiac disease. And sugar and processed food, seem to bother people too. Sugar, I think there's research causing all sorts of inflammation. So don't go crazy. Like I was like already suffering and already wanted to die. And I'm like, okay, you're telling me I can't eat anything now? Like, eating is the one thing I actually enjoy. So you don't have to go crazy, but
I
eat,
want to highlight
I do think
real
eating
quick.
healthy,
Yeah,
exercising to the degree that you can, physical therapy, strengthening muscles. I think I overdid it because I do think I had Guillain-Barré that first year or two, and I probably should have been in bed that first year. And I was forcing myself to walk all these steps, which I think didn't do that, wasn't so great for my body. But aside, if you can do it without damage, move, right? Move, do the
yeah.
physical therapy, do the healthy lifestyle choices. Supplements can't hurt, most of them can't hurt to try them, but you do that alongside trying to figure out medically what's wrong with you. And some of the stuff gets better in time. So Guillain-Barré
Yeah.
often just gets better in time on its own. So like a lot of people who just got better, I think some of them
Mhm.
did have Guillain-Barré. And if it is just a side effect of the medication, that also gets better in time. So it's like time and exercise and healthy and seeing doctors. You put that all together. And like I said, most people make a full recovery without spending these crazy amount of money on functional doctors.
I want to
Don't
highlight real
want to
quick.
say, I don't want to beat up on any of those functional doctors. Like some of them are very, very nice. Some people say they've helped them. I'm not going to take away any other experience, but if you don't have a lot of money to spare,
Yeah,
that's personally not where I would start. I don't know.
absolutely.
Any thoughts on any of that?
Yeah. Oh, I want to highlight real quick on the eating thing. Because I went that route. I went that route in the first year. I was literally only on a strictly based diet that consisted of rice. Uh, I would only eat like organic, like tacos. The corn tortillas, meat, fruit. And I did it for so long till I sat and I asked myself, I said, why am I doing this? Am I psyching myself out doing it? Uh, did it help? I don't know. I can't tell you. But at this point right now, I have a theory. Just a theory. I think when we're all floxed, our body, because obviously one of the black box warnings is central nervous system damage. Um, So I think whether you got central nervous system damage or not, your body's just out of whack from these antibiotics. You're
Yeah.
just on haywire. So I think almost anything you eat, drink, I don't really, I don't want to put this out there saying I don't think the foods are causing you a problem or not, but I think your body's just so haywire that almost anything you put in you, you're gonna feel like
Yeah.
maybe you're having a reaction to it. But anyway, now today, I literally am back to eating anything. When I say anything, of course I try my hardest, like anybody in America does, to try at least to eat healthy. But I'm not sitting back like, oh, I'm having a flare up, I'm having a reaction. The other day, I mean, this is horrible to eat for you, but the other day I'm eating my daughter's fruity pebbles, and I didn't have no problems. So I'm back to a normal lifestyle when it comes to that. And which people told me to, many people told me to outlaw this, that. This will flare up your nerves. This will cause neuropathy. And I listened to that for so long. Like you said, I was already suffering. I feel like I was dying. Uh, for Christ's sake, can like you're telling me
Yeah.
I'm never gonna have pizza again, ice cream, anything like
Like,
that? Like,
yeah, exactly. That's crazy. I mean, if you're having GI issues, doctors will often recommend what they call the elimination diet, where you eliminate everything at first and you slowly introduce back things to see what's bothering you. That makes sense. Or there is some testing now that you can do to see what, I think my rheumatologist is sending me to someone who does like sensitivity testing to see what causes inflammation. So I'm not
yeah,
saying it doesn't matter at all, but this hard and fast rules that like so many Foxleys are throwing out there, like never a steroid, never a medication, never this, like,
yeah.
and that they apply equally to everyone. That's what's bothered me the most about this, right? Like, how do you know which food I can't have without running tests specific to me, right? Like,
I wonder
you
where that
know,
originated from. I mean, I know that's going a little off topic, but I wonder where that those statements like originated from and got so popular because I know there's a contraindication, like you said, at the same time, taking a fluoroquinolone with either a steroid or an NSAID at that particular time. But I'm still trying to figure where it came out that you can never take it again. I mean, I don't understand that.
I think that's the way the internet works, where someone saw the article that said you can't do it together and they extrapolated it and said, no, you can't do it ever. And then other people jumped on. And then, there are people who are very anti-medication. And this is just gonna, what's the word? That's gonna confirm your belief that all medications are bad. And you can just go down a rabbit hole on the internet on anything and confirm whatever you believe. Like I said,
I,
I am going to be more cautious now. I'm never going to take a medication again without reviewing it and researching it and all and seeing like, even patient message boards, even if like, because the patient message boards knew before the doctor all the damage these medications could do. If like thousands of people are saying they had a reaction to a medication, then
yeah.
I at least know that reaction is in the realm of possibility. Um, doesn't mean I'm never going to take it, but I'm going to avoid it if I can.
Oh,
So I'm going to be more cautious, but being more cautious is not the same as never taking anything ever again. Um,
yeah. So
and
you're in a life-threatening situation. You know, I told you my COVID story, right? In 2021. So steroids, I took a ton of steroids while being hospitalized, and this is after my fluoroquinolone event. Um, and here I am. I gotten better, and I'm not gonna lie, that was going through my head, but here I am fighting for my life with COVID, and I mean,
yeah,
they were putting steroids in me twice a day through IV. They
you
said
needed
don't
it to live,
fluoride it. Exactly, yeah.
yeah, and you
And
needed it to live.
yeah,
And I will say that also, slowed your recovery down, just to give some people hope there too, because it, took you almost 4 years. If you hadn't gotten COVID, I think because you were young and healthy to begin with, I think your recovery would have been closer to 2 years. That's just a guess, but I do think COVID, well, I just know because you were doing pretty well, and then COVID just set you back pretty
Yeah,
big time. Right. And then, so, it's not going to take years for everybody, right? Some people it only takes months, or weeks. It's different for everyone. The other advice I give myself, it's so hard, but do it day by day. Don't be like, oh my God, this is going to be forever. Oh my God, is this going to be like, for years? I can't handle it for years. Do it day by day.
you
And
know
just
what I
know that
told
you,
you?
oh, go ahead.
You told me this, and I held it with me. When I say, I'm not exaggerating, when I say every single day of my life, I've held it with me through my bad times, and I still hold it now, even now that I'm feeling better. You always said each day find the smallest thing that you can do that will make you feel happy, feel comfortable, alive. You always tell me, even if it's something simple as your
Yep.
favorite drink, a glass of iced tea, something like that, you would tell me.
Yep.
You don't know how I took that on some days. I remember the worst days. And if I wanted whatever, I did it. I kept that with me and I said, she's right. What are you going to do? You're just going to sit there and not, do anything and just cry in your sorrows, I said to myself, and or fear a food or drink, because you were told. And I kept your saying with me, and whenever I wanted something, I did it, and I felt better. I felt better for
I,
that moment at the time.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because I've not been as good about that lately. The first couple of years, though, when I really did want to die, I was like, I have to find meaning in each day. And like exactly like you said, a glass of iced tea, hearing, my niece laugh, like making a friend laugh.
Yep.
Um, that is what got me through the day. And finding a use for my life. Like, I was used to being so productive, and there I was like not able to move. And I'm like, what is my purpose on this planet? But I'm like, I can still make a friend laugh. I can still listen to, like, them cry. And I'm like, I might not be able to walk or use my arms, but I am still useful on this planet. And
Hmm.
that really, really helped get me through. And then even like a couple a year or two ago, I was still feeling sorry. I was so much better, but I was still feeling sorry for myself, to be honest, because even though I was so much better, I kept focusing on the things I'll never be able to do. Like, I'll never be able to go on a hike again, or not that I was like, Miss Athlete before, but I still like to, do some hikes, or I'll never be able to go abroad and walk around a city, or I'll never even be able to go to, like, shopping be on my feet for more than a couple hours. And I was very much focused on like all the things I could never do. And
Yeah.
then I read an article, an obituary of someone I didn't know well, but he was the type of person that made anyone that he met feel like they were like this long lost, like amazing friend, and made everyone feel special. And he had died, read in a like newspaper that he had died, and they had done this beautiful obituary of him. And he had ALS and Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a really painful, like awful, miserable disease to die from. And most patients with ALS, as it gets closer to the end, really want out because it's no way to live. And he had said, and I only know this from this article I had read, was like, nope, I want to stay in this world as long as I can make one person laugh, as long as I can help, like, one person smile or help someone, even if it, like, he's like, he would apparently drive up to people in his wheelchair and like use the voice, because he couldn't use his own voice, to like scare them and they would laugh. Like, he was like, I made someone laugh today. Like, I still want to be on this planet. And I had a shift in thinking of, okay, I'm not going to focus on what I can't do. I'm going to focus on what I can do. And that really helped. There are moments when I forget it. So,
I got
but
goosebumps on that one.
like, I mean that I got to tell you, reading that one article, that one obituary was like after a year of therapy. It was like, holy shit, he wasn't sitting there feeling sorry for himself. Like, then I'm not gonna say, yeah, it kind of sucks that I can't damn my feet for 2 hours, so I can't go shopping for 2 hours. But really, like, um, like, oh, woe is me. And I really did kind of change my thinking to like all of the things I can do. Um, so, and those things like, pet a dog, kiss a child, like those are things, even without arms and legs you can do. Um, so I hope this video leaves some people with hope. Most people's journeys are not as long as ours. I swear to that. I really think a lot of people get better to the 6 month to the year mark.
Yeah.
Some people 2 years. And after it's over, not that I wish this on anyone, but after it's over, you do have this really great perspective on how, like, and people just take it for granted. They take fit health for granted. And when it's right, aren't you happier now than kind of before? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but then
Yeah,
before you got sick.
it brings humility over you. It brings a different type of thing. Every day, no matter how hard it is, you're like, wow, it's a humbling experience. And somebody told me this one time. They said, a Floxy, he told me, he said, one day, and I said, he is out of his mind when he first told me this. He said, one day you're going to be actually thankful that it happened to you. And I said, oh, no way, that'll never happen. And I'm starting to see what he said in a sense, because it put brakes on me. It put brakes on me. There's a lot of things that before I got floxed, that I wasn't seeing. I wasn't seeing. When you get slowed down, you tend to see a lot of things that, because when you're in emotion, you feel like Superman. You feel like nothing's gonna happen. You don't make time for a lot of certain things, and
Yeah.
then you force to slow down. You start to realize, okay, there's a lot more to life than you thought there was.
Exactly. And you don't take things for granted. I still wanted to end on like that powerful note, but it did remind me something that I forgot to say, which is the term floxing in doctors. I think like, if you want doctors to help you, you've got to speak their language and play their games, unfortunately. So I think the other mistake is when we all go in and say, "Oh, I've been floxed, I've been floxed." That's not a medical term.
Yeah,
And that, right? It's not a medical term. And that I think, look, the doctors it's wrong for them to be dismissive regardless of what language that we use. But since we know that many of them are, and they only will spend X amount of time with us, we might as well like reduce the chances that they're going to be dismissive of us. So I think it's more helpful to go in with what symptoms you have, and you can say that it started upon taking X antibiotic, right? Right. But it's not like your disease is not floxing, right? Your disease could be, a vitamin deficiency. It could be a tendon rupture. It could be the myasthenia. It could just be even just the side effects of floxing usually have names: neuropathy, tendinosis, right? Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
go in with your symptoms, do say that the antibiotic, started it, initiated it. But it's more about the symptoms. And that's just my like aside for working with doctors. I also go in with, knowledge of your own symptoms, potential things that you want them to test you for, and expect that they're not going to be that helpful, but keep trying.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
that's what I would say. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
last parting thought for the audience, or anything that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I think you should mention how, get get a little more in depth, and because I know we're speaking about healing, and we do heal in time, but tell them a little more in depth how you are. Are you still currently in the gym? I know you were in the gym, you said a few times a week. Um,
Yes.
Huge. I mean, for anyone that's flexed. Some people, it's hard for them to even get outside again after being flexed. So uh, there's other little things out there too, and I think you should mention this. There's certain people that they will not even drink sink water ever again, or they won't buy, they won't brush their teeth with certain things. And I know these are little things, but these are actually huge to some people in the Floxy community. And when I spoke to you about it, I remember you telling me, no, I still, go to dental appointments. I still do this, and I get cleanings, and because you'll have some people that will just able outlaw everything.
My tap water, no evidence. They have this theory of fluoride. I don't think there's any medical evidence of any of that. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I have not seen in the people that I've talked to differences between those who've gotten rid of the fluoride or not. I don't think that makes any difference whatsoever. What
Yeah.
has helped me is a combination of time, physical therapy, and now I switched from physical therapy to training.
Hmm.
So I have a personal trainer who's coming later today, and you know, you do have to I did get the MRI. I got a lot of tendinosis, I got a lot of inflammation, and the way around all of that is strengthening muscles. Um, I've tried to clean up my diet and I'm trying to eat less processed food and less sugar because I do think there's
Hmm.
research to show that sugar inflammation are not good. I have a whole other story about I did find another diagnosis through all this, but I want to save that for another day. But I did not stop researching, reading journal articles, demanding that doctors test me for things. I do believe I had Guillain-Barré, but I also believe I have some other autoimmune diseases, hormone deficiency, and I think it was a whole bunch of things all together. I think the antibiotic unleashed a perfect storm in my body of conditions that I already had, and then added new ones. And it was like a jigsaw puzzle. And I never gave up with the research. I never gave up with finding the top doctors and the things I thought I had. Sometimes I was way off and I didn't have it. But I demand they ran the tests.
I know that one. Yeah.
And right, sometimes I was right. Sometimes I demand them ran the test and they were like, no way. But I was like, just run the damn test. And I was right. And that is a story I'll share at another time. Um, but it was, I think doing that, I'm now on a combination of medications that seems to really be helping with the addition of this training and the exercise. And
Awesome.
I am getting stronger. Still have this neck pain depending on the day, back pain depending on the day. Still, can't stand in line and stand for long periods of time, but I am noticing that my walks, I made myself walk throughout, and I'm noticing that I feel more normal when I walk. And I feel like I can go more steps.
Nice.
I can sometimes get to like 6,000 steps without feeling any pain at all. And when this first happened, I live in a New York City one-bedroom apartment. Those of you who have never seen New York City apartments, they are small. And I could not get from one end of the apartment to the other when this first happened. And now I can often get to 5,000 steps without any pain. And, can walk 8,000 steps, start to feel it, but 1,000 times better. So there is hope. We just got to keep pursuing it. We gotta, just don't give up hope. I think I'm gonna end there. Don't take the medication in the first place, but if you
Yeah.
do, don't give up hope.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't take the medication in the first place. There's
and
enough out there on it right now to not take it and to
like,
begin with,
yeah. And try to educate. I mean, there are a lot of doctors in my life, and I tell all of them not to prescribe it. They don't all listen to me, which is frustrating, but I try to educate and, tell people that also helped me. The number of people I stopped from taking it made me feel like my life was useful too. But, people were like, my doctor just prescribed this. Is this the medication I'm not supposed to take? And how many times it was Cipro, I cannot tell you. And those people marched right back to their doctor and said, prescribe something else. So, spread the word. And Chuck, I got to either get to Boston, right? You're in Boston, or you got to get to New
No,
York so
no,
I
no,
can give
I'm
you,
in Michigan. Yeah,
where are you? Wait, say that again.
I'm in Michigan.
I didn't hear you that. Where?
I'm in Michigan.
Oh, you're in, why did I think you were in Boston? Okay, you're in Michigan. Well, I had to get to Michigan and, or you have to get to New York because we need to give each other a great big hug. And I think if we do it like by the summer, I might be as good as you because I'm getting there. So, and
We're
I'd like to meet your wife and daughter and,
absolutely.
because
You
this
would
has
love
been
my
a
daughter. My
journey.
daughter's, oh man, she's something.
How old is she now? She's,
5 years old.
wow. Wow. And you can now you can now be playing with her and chasing after her and
I was just playing with her the other night. She got this new penguin game or something, and you know, I it's it's getting better. I've been out to parks more. It's a day by day process, but from where I came from, man, it's night and day.
you know what? She's not going to remember the years when it was a struggle to play with her. That's she's not going to remember them. So that's she's going to remember all these times, that you were able to. So that's pretty incredible, right?
Yeah,
Really incredible because I know you were so worried, understandably so, of having a young child and, not being able to run after her. And I just I think let's end on that because she's not gonna, at her wedding one day, she's not gonna remember that daddy was ever too sick to play with her. Um, so that's really, really incredible. And I wish I was there in person so I could give you a hug through the screen. But we will do that. We will do that. You gotta come to New York. I gotta come to Michigan. And we gotta make that work. Um,
just from
so with that, I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody, but remember, don't take
yeah,
them, educate people not to take them, but there is hope.